Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
All right, welcome, YouTubers. This is Mr. Mean bringing you a video du jour of a classic, but yet modern. Funny how this works. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. This is one of my all-time favorite RPGs. I have played this thing so much it's not even funny. Where to start? Geez, this is what, 1980? Oh, geez, I don't even know. Let's see here. Copyright 1986 was the cover printing. And I think it actually came out before then. But this is an amazing game. This is the second printing. There was a print copy before this. It looked exactly the same. This was just, I think they did a second printing for the US. I'm gonna fumble with my audio here so I don't hear myself so bad. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the audio in the video. This is a classic, man. You can't go wrong with this game. They came out with a number of supplements. It was very well supported. Of course, you could use the Warhammer line of miniatures and everything for it as well, which was always fun. And that was always a hoot because, you know, they had a plethora of miniatures. And if you were lucky enough to have Warhammer Fantasy Quest, which came out a little bit later, those miniatures worked really well. And then you could use those boards as well to help. And I did, because I still have Warhammer Fantasy Quest. So it's really nice. So this is a monster of a book for back in the day. I mean, this thing had 364 pages softback. This was a herky book. Like I said, it was really well supported. It was Games Workshop, and then I believe back when they still had Citadel miniatures, if I could talk, and that's what they incorporated. They would ask you to use, but it was just a really well done RPG, and this game is still very playable, just like this. And these are not hard to find, but the neat part is they were so well supported it wasn't even funny. They had some really awesome adventures. Power Behind the Throne. This was the Enemy Within campaign. This is the third volume. I do have volumes 1 and 2, but they're packed away. I just ran across these when I was looking for something in one of my RPG boxes. And then Apocrypha 2, City of Darkness. Writings of doubtful authorship and authenticity, spurless isles, mystical, forbidden, or heretical works. Apocrypha 2, Charts of Darkness, the second compendium of articles for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, bringing new setting, rules, personalities, and excitement to your game. So these were republished by Hogshead Press. Those guys were neat. They were based out of England, and they got the rights to do to reprint all of this stuff and to take a lot of fan-made stuff and make it canon, which was pretty cool. Cover art was by John Blanche, who was huge into the Warhammer, you know, big Games Workshop guy. The Power Behind the Throne one, you can even see it's kind of old because the pages are yellowing. I mean, it's really well done. This was a phenomenal adventure. Many, many, many hours of wonderful gaming, as Brian, my good friend Brian, can attest to as well. In fact, his crew went so far as to burn down their favorite tavern. That's how you know you're having fun, when you burn down your favorite tavern. Life is good. So Carl Sargent wrote this, who was at the time a big guy for Games Workshop. And if you can pick these up, man, these are just gaming nostalgia. I mean, there's floor plans in there that are just awesome. They had NPC stat lines. The Count or the Court Mistral Relaine Lafarel. There he is. They just did a really nice job of everything was laid out. There was no excuses. I think most of these adventures were so well written. It's just amazing, and they should be reprinted for today. And of course, Charts of Darkness was Apocrypha. They came out with Hogshead, like I said, got the rights to publish stuff when Games Workshop and Citadel decided to get out of the role-playing business. They sold it off or gave rights to Hogshead, and there was a guy at Hogshead, Anthony Reagan, if I remember correctly, and he was awesome. I actually had the joy of doing some demo work for Hogshead when this was still in print many years ago, back in the early 90s, if I remember correctly, or mid 90s. And I went to Gen Con and I ran a bunch of adventures and stuff to promote Hogshead. They kind of, back in the day when game companies used to like subsidize you or pay for your tickets at Gen Con or whatever. But they did, Anthony Reagan did Marienburg, Sold Down the River, and this was a source book for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Had a cool map in the back, which I still have. That map is in there, and it's a map of Marienburg, so it's very cool. As a matter of fact, Anthony even signed it for me. To John, the Snotlings are everywhere. Anthony Reagan. This was written by him. I did a little play test and a little proofreading for this for him. Way back in the day. I don't even know. I don't see a date on here. There's no date. That's weird. You think there would have been, but there's not. So this is just awesome. And you can see on the back it says Hogshead and Games Workshop. So they were in conjunction. Games Workshop, I believe, still owned the license. Hogshead was just had the ability to put out stuff for it. And I don't know whatever happened to Hogshead. I don't know if they just went under. They decided to stop doing whatever. One of the books I really enjoyed was The Dwarf, which was written by Alfred Nunez Jr. Cover art was by Ralph Horsley, a whole bunch of artists, well-known people in here. But this is the Dwarf book, and I was a huge Warhammer, Dwarf fan, and still am. So this book got a lot of play at my gaming table. And funny story, not funny, but just anecdotal at the best. I wind up selling a bunch of my World of Darkness books when I moved from California to Arizona, and this was accidentally in there. And I was devastated because you couldn't buy it anymore. Like I said, Hogshead went out of business or was gone or whatever, so I didn't know what to do. I went to the local used bookstore in Arizona called Bookman's. And they're a chain in northern. I think there's one in Tucson as well. Maybe even be two now, but there was a whole bunch. There's 2 or 3 up in northern Arizona in the Phoenix area where I lived. They had a copy of this for $10. And I was like, in fact, you might even, you can't really see it, but I erased it. But I rebought it. And it sucks because the first one had signatures in it and everything. What was cool about this is it has the Dwarven runes in the back. So if you got the Tome of Magic or whatever, you could use Dwarven runes. And it was just cool. The layout of this book was phenomenal. It was dense with information. It even had its own dwarf characteristics. So you could make a dwarf out of the book, the core rule book, or you could go really in depth with your dwarf character in here. Apocrypha 1 had a whole bunch of, I think, wood elf stuff, and it was kind of the same way. But it wasn't in the presentation quality that this book was, because the Apocrypha books were like web articles and fanzines that they had cobbled together, and some unofficial or official writing from Games Workshop and the Citadel guys, and they put it all into one thing. But this was, as far as I know, this was the first race book to officially be a race book from Games Workshop for the RPG, or from Hogshead, and it's phenomenal. There is so much information in here that it is amazing. So yeah, I think that's the Dwarf organ cannon right there, right there. Amazing art in here, just really well done. Contrary to belief, dwarf women do not have beards. There's proof. There's one right there. So it's a running joke. Just super cool stuff, and of course that infamous Games Workshop art, or in Citadel art, just amazing stuff. I'm looking for a good piece of art to really show off. I don't know if they had any full spread art in here. They had small pieces. Lore Master, career. They had a whole bunch of new careers: Mountaineer, Runesmith. So again, you got all those runes in there, and this is how they did their version of a career path. So it was very well laid out. Book was phenomenal. Is phenomenal, I should say. Oh yeah, there's a classic. There's a classic dwarf piece right there. I mean, that's Games Workshop right there, and that, to me, that's how my version of dwarves look in any RPG game that I play. They're definitely fierce and strong and craftsmen. Just phenomenal art as always. Dwarf technology. If you could find this book, I highly recommend you pick it up. I don't even know if this is still available anymore. This is definitely a treasure. I also have Realms of Chaos and Realms of Sorcery, I believe they were both called. They were hardback, put out by Games Workshop and Citadel. They are buried away. They are both quite rare. One has Nurgle, I think it was Nurgle and Slaanesh, and the other one had Tzeentch and Khorne, or something like that. I don't remember. Like I said, they're piled away. Great books. They weren't necessarily for the RPG. They were more for the miniatures line that was just starting to come out for Warhammer 40K, Warhammer 40,000, or Rogue Trader is actually what it was called. But it had the stats in there, and you could definitely use it for the role-playing game. But it wasn't an official supplement, if I remember correctly. And like I said, those books are buried, and I don't even know where they are. And then one of them's I think the one with Nurgle in it's in pretty bad shape because I used it quite a lot. But so that segues into being an awesome game that we all know and love. And if you don't know it, do yourself a favor, find a copy. It's not terribly hard, and just give it a read, because you'll see there's a lot of role-playing games today that could take a page out of that book and be successful, because it was very well done and sold very well. But then we fast forward to 2005. Games Workshop, under the guise of the Black Library, which was their publishing house, that's the side that did all of their novels and all of their fiction and stuff like that. They worked out a deal with Chris Pramis from Green Ronin to make Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, A Grim World of Perilous Adventure, which is obviously the successor to this book, where it says A Grim World of Perilous Adventure right on the cover. So great homage and a shout out to the original. So this would be technically the second edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but some purists would say no, it's the third, because there was the first edition of Warhammer, which, if you have a copy of that, you are you are indeed a true collector. I do not, and so I would love to get a copy. As far as I know, it looked exactly the same. I think the cover was slightly different, and it wasn't quite as thick, but it was pretty much a reprint to that second edition, which is the copy I have. But in America, we consider this technically the second edition because the Games Workshop Hogshead version was just a reprint. But this, I mean, and look at the thickness. I mean, look at the original book, you know, the original book's thickness to this book. I mean, it's double the thickness almost. But that's because they streamlined it a hell of a lot. And in my opinion, they did a fantastic job. This is probably one of the best produced role-playing games for its time in 2005. I don't think anything else on the market was even close to this. It was very well done. I didn't find a whole lot of typos in here. Maybe other people did, and I didn't search it for typos. I was lucky enough to be in on the playtest for this, but I got in at the very end. But luckily, I was able to do it, so I had all the files and was able to play it. And I ran this for quite a while for my group in Arizona. They obviously cut back a lot of the careers and the advanced careers, but there still is enough in here to get a flavor. Wizardry or magic works the same way. They just did a bang-up job for this. Still a percentile system, the old Warhammer was a D6 for damage. This was a D10. So they did pretty cool there. Pretty much all you needed for this was D10s, percentile dice. So instead of rolling a D6 and adding your strength minus your opponent's armor and toughness, you rolled a D10. So the damage scaled a little bit different, a little more lethal in this, believe it or not. But they really kept the flavor of Warhammer in here. I mean, trolls, chaos. I mean, everything. There's a little bit of everything in here. The dwarves, they did real great homage to. Just the art is fantastic. They got permission. I believe they created all new art, but I mean, just some of that art right there is phenomenal. I mean, that's good art, and it's like that throughout the book. Very, very, very well done. Here's your careers, you know, just a sampling of how they did it in this book. Each one gets like a half a page and gives you all their advances and everything. So really well done, very well supported in the short time. There was a parting of the guard about, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe a little less, a little more. Black Library stopped publishing. For whatever reason, they just said, we don't want to be involved in this. I don't know if Games Workshop, that division shut down or whatever. But again, a lot of supplements and everything. Here's the Old World Bestiary. So basically your monster manual. And it was still Black Industries, which is the Black Library's publishing house. It was their RPG side. And of course, Green Ronin did their part. They did the actual publishing of the book and everything. I think Black Libraries just had to approve everything. And, it's a monster manual written from the point of view of an explorer. Just everything you could need, all the basic monsters, goblins, rats, everything like that. I don't unfortunately have any of the non-Black Library books, but I do have them. Like I know this is the Realms of Sorcery, so this is all your magic. There's rune magic in here. So again, you had to get that other book back in the day from Hogshead Publishing that had all your runes in it, but this had it in here. There's magical lore. The art is phenomenal. Hopefully you can see that with my big head not in the way. This is in all of these books, I think, are still readily available either on eBay or on I think you can still buy them from Green Ronin. You might even be able to find them in a couple other places. This is a phenomenal game. Plays very well. It harkens me back to those days of long evenings after high school, playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay with my friends out of high school, and just getting into it and getting stuck in, as we used to say, fighting cultists and everything like that, and just having a super duper blast with the game. It's one of those nostalgia games that really brings me back. It's a very dark role-playing game. It's not as dark as, say, Cynbarium or Poseidon, although Poseidon's more of a sci-fi, modern, it's futuristic game, or it's not as dark as like Call of Cthulhu can be, but everything in here was, I mean, out to eat you or kill you or subvert you, one of the three. And they really brought that feel from the original Warhammers over to Green Ronin's version of Warhammer. Green Ronin did a fabulous job of porting it over, streamlining the mechanics, getting rid of certain things that didn't make sense, but yet keeping that flavor of Warhammer. Getting bonuses to parry and to charging, and if you're initiative and all that. I mean, everything is in there. They did remove some of it, but it's cleaned up in such a way that you don't really miss it if you're a big fan of the older version. So if you can find either one of these games, I'm pretty sure the Green Ronin version is available out there, but I'm sure the old version's available as well. But I know they're not making it. Fantasy Flight took over the license, and they make a version that it was their precursor to Star Wars RPGs with proprietary dice. There wasn't a character sheet per se. They went more of a 3D, almost like Descent. That's what I would call Fantasy Flight's third edition of Warhammer. And it had a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, they threw out a plethora of stuff. I personally didn't like it. I just was not a fan of it. This is my version right here. I like the original, but I think the Green Ronin is actually a superior version because of the cleanups and everything that they did. So I'm really impressed with it. Still am to this day. Would love to run it on like Fantasy Ground. I've seen a couple interface hacks or whatever for Fantasy Ground that I think would be phenomenal to run, and I'm looking forward to giving those a try. So anyway, it's a Sunday afternoon about 2:30. I have the rest of today and all day Monday. And then Tuesday morning, bright and early, the wife and I get up and we get to go have a baby. So we're pretty excited about this. So I'm going to be running silent for about a week as we get settled in. She's going to have to spend about 2 to 3 days in the hospital, barring any complications. But we're going to hope that there are none, and we're gonna wish for a healthy and happy baby. And so I'll be silent for about a week, and then maybe the following week I'll. If time and everything permits, new baby and all that. But I'm totally looking forward to it. Being a dad is an awesome responsibility, and it is a lot of fun. It's as rewarding as you want it to be. I don't look at it as a chore. I look at it as a privilege, and I'm so excited to be bringing my little man in the world. So, and my wife's doing all the hard work. So she's got to go through all that fun stuff. And then hopefully we'll be back home by the end of the week and get settled in with our little man. And we'll start going from there. And then we'll see if I can crank out a video or two after the birth of my son. So anyway, this is Mr. Mean, wishing you all health and happiness. Don't forget, Nerds International is part of the group of purveyors of fine content, and I am part of them, and I'm happy to be so. So go check them out on G+. Pretty cool site. Lots of good, diverse information for whatever your nerd culture is. And as always, peace and hair grease, and be nice. Thank you, guys.